Hello, everyone. Welcome to Enjoy the Book of Life. It's hard to believe we're almost finished with 1 year's worth of episodes. We're getting to the end of Season 1 and 2022. It's been great, and I'd like to talk more about that next week. But this week, I'm just going to do a little plug for something that we've got in the works for Season 2. And that'll be a whole new playlist looking at what we call specialty tools. So if we remember all the way back, our first 2 episodes are on what I call the basic Bible study tools. If you haven't listened to those, go all the way back. I think they're incredibly helpful for me. I give the illustration of construction workers. And it doesn't matter what kind of construction worker you are, if you're a plumber, if you're a framer, if you're a roofer, you're going to have certain basic tools in your toolbox. You're going to have a hammer, a level, you're going to have a screwdriver set, you're going to have a tape measure. These are your basic tools. And they're basic Bible study tools, things that no matter where we are in the scriptures, whether I'm in an epistle or a psalm or some historical narrative, no matter where I am in the Bible, whether Song of Solomon or Revelation, I should be using those tools. I should have them handy. And the more we use them, the more they become natural for us as we do our Bible study. But then, once we've done what I call the basic Bible study tools, and there are 4 of them, so it's not overwhelming. It's something that we can easily develop into our repertoire. The 5th one is where we jump into our specialty tools. And this 5th one I call text analysis. And this is where our approach depends on what kind of genre we're looking at. So if I am in a psalm, it's going to be different than if I'm in an epistle or in a prophetic book. And so how do I approach these differently? What are the next stepping stones, as it were, to allow us into that next little section? So this is going to be new to Season 2, where I'll have a brand new playlist of specialty tools. But I just wanted to do a plug this week going forward so that you know this is coming, and hopefully it will get you excited. And I think it's good to lay the groundwork. That way you'll be looking for the pieces as we go throughout Season 2. So the genres, okay? Why different approaches? Well, you wouldn't read a love letter the same way you'd read a mortgage, right? And so when we have a book like the Song of Solomon, it mirrors what we could call a love letter. But then when we come over to the book of Romans, it reads more like a legal document with arguments and certain case law. And so we need to have that in our mind so that we catch those. Each one is specific. And again, this is where if I want to become a framer, I'm going to purchase different tools to have at the ready than if I'm a plumber. And so as we work in these different areas, in these different scriptures, we're going to start developing the use of these tools. And we want to be handy in all of them, not just specialize in one or the other. So what are these tools? And what are the genres? Let's look at the genres, because I don't want to go into all the tools in one episode. That's what our playlist is going to be. So with each genre, we'll make our own episode and kind of do a deeper dive, not into the fullest extent, but again, here are the next stepping stones. So Season 1 gave us the basic Bible study tools in the first 2 episodes. And then when we go into Season 2, I'd like to look out almost at a level 1 of these specialty tools. So the genres we'll be looking at, historical narrative, any sort of story through the Bible that's telling the history of the people of God. The law, So any sort of text where the law of God is in focus. Poetical books. We've got exposition. We've got prophecy. And then we have what I call hidden teachings. Okay, so this could be parables. It could be miracles. It could be signs. It could be wonders. It could be dreams. And it could be visions. So all of those kind of put together into what I call hidden teachings. So that's the list of all these genres. And we're going to take, again, just a small step into each of these, so that if, let's say, during your own Bible study, you're going into the Messianic Psalms, or if you're reading through the book of Proverbs, or if you're in 1 Peter, you'll have some resources and some little tidbits that'll point you in the right direction and make some more observations beyond just those basic Bible tools that we've talked about at the beginning. So what's so helpful? Why should I be excited about these specialty tools? What's so special about the specialty tools? Well, number one, it helps give you added direction. So when I'm sitting there with the text and I've worked my way through, again, those basic Bible tools, I've found those important words, those repeated words and ideas, phrases, and I've asked my questions, and I've made good connections through the text into my own life, and I found general comprehension. What's the next set of direction? So a good example of this is when you're going through historical narrative, for example. If a geographical area is mentioned, trace those through the scriptures. So if all of a sudden Mount Ebal is mentioned, well, what other stories, where else does Mount Ebal pop up? Or Mount Carmel, or a river, the lower fords of the Jordan, or a city like Bethlehem. So how might this story connect with other stories just based on the geography? And so there, it's another little arrow pointing you in a new direction so that you can take that next step of discovery, a new path for you to follow. A second reason why I think these are helpful tools is that it helps you uncover structures and themes through the text. So, for example, the study of parallelisms in the Psalms is very, very helpful. We'll go into several of these, just again as a taste. But these parallelisms, they put the text together. Sometimes it contrasts, sometimes it complements, sometimes it repeats, and we can learn something there. So just a little example here. Psalm 1, verse 6. You go down all the way to the bottom and it says, "The Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish." Okay, so it's a parallelism, but it's a contrasting. Okay, so the way of the righteous and the way of the ungodly, those are opposite, right? So then we can look at the other halves of the verse, the other sections, and it's the Lord knows and shall perish. Those are put in contrast to each other, right? The Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. So we see, why is that? And it gives you that new direction. Why would the Lord knows be opposite, be contrasting with shall perish? Well, this is life eternal, that they may know you and Jesus Christ whom thou hast sent. To be known of God, or to know God, or rather to be known by God, right? This is This is what perishing is to not be known by God, right? God will say, "Depart from me, I never knew you." And so just that little tidbit where when we're aware of those parallelisms and we see those in the text, it just gives you that theme, that structure that we weren't paying attention to before. Another example would be argumentative tactics in exposition. And we've got some great examples of this. Sometimes when Paul is going through and he's laying a case for justification, he goes back to Abraham. Well, why Abraham? Why not someone else? Like Moses had faith, David had faith. Why not use them? And then sometimes he will go to David. Well, why did he go to David there? Why not to someone else? Caleb had faith, Joshua had faith. And so asking those questions, why that person? What about that person made them the perfect example for his case? And so those sorts of things, it gives you that new direction, but then it also allows you to see a theme and the structure of his argument, the structure of the poetry. So very helpful there. A third reason I think these are very helpful is it helps to compartmentalize as well as connect the scriptures. Okay? So here's one example. If I am reading poetry and it refers to an actual historical event, we know that this is about when Absalom chased David, this psalm. Well, there's a connection there, and it connects that psalm with historical narrative. Or when I'm reading 1 Peter or 2 Peter, and Peter says something, and it's like, oh, that sounds a lot like this story, right? When Peter calls the Lord Jesus the chief shepherd and says, oh, that sounds a whole lot like when Jesus was telling him to feed my sheep, right? Take care of my lambs. And we draw that connection and say, ooh, here's a good connection. So it connects them, but then it also compartmentalizes them to where we can see when I'm going through a narrative text, let's say, like the Gospels, and all of a sudden there's a parable inserted. I can switch from looking at my narrative specialty tools, right? I can pack up that bag and pull out my hidden teachings bag, toolbox, and get to work there. Just like a contractor, and he's remodeling your kitchen, he has to pull out his plumbing tools, pack those up, and then pull out another set of tools when he puts in your cabinets. So being able to do that, it helps you compartmentalize and say, I'm looking at narrative here. Oh, now I'm looking at a parable within that narrative. And so it helps us make those connections, like when the psalm is referring to a historical event, but then it also helps to compartmentalize between them. So again, this is something I'm looking forward to, and I'd like to continue to develop these and get a little deeper and a little deeper. And so as we get used to these, as we use these Bible tools, we're going to be able to go further and further into them. But I'd just like, with this episode, to get us on that path so that we can be looking for those, we can pay attention for those. And then if you're not familiar with the Enjoy the Book of Life YouTube page, we have all of these in playlists. So if there's a particular type of episode that you really enjoy, check out our playlist page where we'll have all our tips and tricks together, all our resource reviews together, all our Grow and Shines together, our treasured discoveries together, Nick's picks, people, places, things. We got Scads and Scads episodes already just after season 1. We're looking forward to add to them, as well as make new things like these specialty tools. So in the new year, be watchful for those specialty tools, and hopefully this episode is a good intro so that you know where those are going.